creator of Dry It, Can It. I'm not a professional, I'm a homemaker, but I like to share tips and tricks that I do for freeze drying, canning, and dehydrating. Today, I want to show you how I use my Stay Fresh freeze dryer to make Tootsie Rolls. And I don't use candy mode for this. And I want to talk a little bit about that before we get started. Now, I have a Stay Fresh freezer and I have an industrial pump. My Stay Fresh freeze dryer has shelf space of 2 inches. If yours has a little bit less, you're probably going to want to use smaller pieces or a temperature that's a little bit lower, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Also, the directions that I give you today, because we're not going to use the candy mode, we're going to use the function mode. And if you choose to watch this video, I need you to watch it all the way through. And the reason being is when you're using the function mode, essentially you're setting up your machine to use the candy mode. But if you don't follow the steps directly, you could wreck your machine. It's not complicated, it's easy. I'm going to take you step by step. But you need to follow the whole process correctly in order to do that. Why do I want to use the function mode instead of the candy mode? When I first started experimenting with Tootsie Rolls, I got a successful candy in that they expanded and they were crunchy, but it was a hard crunch, and it was a harder crunch than I really wanted to have. So I figured out I needed to use smaller pieces and maybe a little bit higher temperature. Initially, I used the function mode and I preheated my candy in the freeze dryer for about 20 minutes, and that didn't really quite get me to where I want to. So today I'm trying a completely different method. I think it's going to work, but we're going to see. So to start with, and I should say that I've done the chocolate Tootsie Rolls and I've done the fruity Tootsie Rolls. The fruity Tootsie Rolls are a little bit easier to do. I think they get a little bit crunchy, but I've not done this particular method with those yet. So I start with some plain old Tootsie Rolls, but I'm also using the small ones. So they're not real big, they're relatively small. And I'm going to use them whole. Probably the most difficult part to all of this, and it's really not that difficult, is to unwrap all of these individual pieces. So I have a 4-tray shelf, a 4-tray unit, and I have found that laying these out, my trays are 8 inches by 20 inches, laying these out 4 inches across and 8 inches down, 32 pieces per tray, works really well. So I've got these unwrapped, and I am going to show you step by step how I do this, again using the function mode. So feel free to take notes, but again, if you're going to watch the video, please watch it all the way through, because there's a process for turning it on and using it, and there's a process for turning it off. So let's get started and let's see how this turns out. All right, I do my Tootsie Rolls 4 across and 8 down on the trays on parchment, and then put the 4 trays into the oven, into a cold oven. All right, before I get my candy heated in the oven, I'm going to come to my main screen, and I'm going to push functions. And then I'm just going to turn the compressor on, which is basically going to start heating the drum. I want to wait till the trap temperature gets to around -10 or so before I take the next step. Stay tuned. While my machine starts to cool down, I set my oven for 225 degrees, and then I'll go ahead and start that. And again, my candy is in there cold, and so I'm slowly going to start heating that up. All right, you can see that my trap temperature, which is the round thing, is down to -14. Once you get to about 15 or 16 minutes, this trap temperature drops really fast. So my next step is to set the temperature that I'm going to do the Tootsie Rolls, which is 150. So I'm going to come over to here. I'm going to push my temperature set button. Wait a minute here. I have to lift my camera to see what I'm doing. And I'm going to set that at 150. Like so, it's 150. And then I'm going to put the heater to on. That's going to heat up the tray. This is a number I'm going to watch, and I'll explain this later. Now, it's really important you do all of this in certain steps, and the same thing with when you shut this machine down. So be sure to follow me along as I go with this. So at this point, my compressor, the freezing of the drum's been on for 17 minutes. I literally just turned the heater on at 150 degrees. My heater is on, and this will count now how long the heater is going to be on. So my candy is still in the oven. Let's check that out. The candy's been in the oven now for about 12 minutes, and you can see that it's melting down, which is just what I want it to be. All right, you saw that the candy was melted, and a couple of things you want to be aware of. Number one, you want to wrap your trays, or the unit that holds your trays, in aluminum foil, because that will provide an insulated barrier. It's a little tricky to do that. It's best if you have two people, but wrap that in a double layer of aluminum foil, basically around the whole thing, leaving the front and the back open. The second thing you want to do is make sure that your valves are closed and that your pump is turned on and plugged into your machine. Obviously, your pump's not going to be running yet, but make sure that your valves are closed. That's going to be a really important step next here. All right, about 9 minutes later, my temperature is at 147, which is close to that 150. I'm going to hit this button here, which is basically going to still let that temperature get to 150, and then it's going to hold it. Now, when my candy was melted, I shut off my oven, but I left the candy in the oven because it's going to hold that temperature. So my next step right now, and you can see my shelf temperature now is at 150, is to go up and get that candy and bring it down and put it into the machine as quick as I can. Because my oven is upstairs and my machine is downstairs, the next time you're going to see me or see the next step is going to be when the candy is in the freeze dryer. This has to be done quickly so the candy does not cool. Candy is in the freeze dryer, and I immediately want to hit this button, then this button, which is going to start the pump and everything. It's going to make some noise for a little bit, and I do have an industrial pump, but that pump is going to start moving that candy and get it going. So now we just wait and see what happens. These have been in the freeze dryer now for about 3 minutes, and that's probably the size they're going to end up if they don't shrink down on me, which has happened in the past. So we're gonna let this run and see what happens, but they're looking really good. Okay, the candy has been in here now for 276 minutes at 150 degrees. This number starts counting when it reaches temperature. So the candy's been going for about 4.5 hours, which is enough time. So now I'm going to shut this down and show you how you do this. And you want to make sure you do it in exact reverse order from what you started with. So I'm going to start by shutting off the valve, then the pump, then the temperature, and then the compressor, which is going to shut everything off. Then to release the candy, I'm going to go over to my valve and I'm going to open this very, very slowly. You do not want too much air coming out at one time, or your candy can deflate. So let's take a look at, see what it looks like when it's finished. The candy is out of the freeze dryer and it looks amazing. I'm really happy with it. 3 out of 4 trays look fabulous. The 4th tray, which was on the 2nd shelf where the heater is, got too warm. I mean, you can see this is just one big bubble piece. So I probably can save some of these pieces, but some of these will go to waste. Well, not to waste, we'll still eat them. But they're gonna make great Father's Day gifts. This turned out really crunchy. It's light, it's airy. It's exactly what I was going for. I talked to you about heating these, starting these in a cold oven and setting the temperature at 225. I did that for 2 reasons. One, I don't want a big temperature fluctuation from the pan heat, the 225, putting it into the freeze dryer at 150 on that tray. And secondly, I want the heat to slowly penetrate into the candy as opposed to putting it in an oven of maybe 275 or 300 or 325. where it melts the outside quickly, but the inside doesn't get there. So this is a win. This absolutely works. Remember, with all freeze-dried food, it's super hygroscopic. It will absorb moisture really, really quickly. So you want to get it into bags or Mylar bags or jars or whatever you're going to store it in. Initially, I often will use a Ziploc freezer bag. Make sure it is a freezer bag. It's thick enough. That'll hold it for a day or so, no problem. I'll actually be repackaging these. These are going to make great gifts. But in the meantime, if you found this helpful, if you want to see more candy, subscribe to the button below. Thumbs up. I would appreciate your feedback. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.